एक मिनट मूवमेंट वाला बुक खोली, उसके अंदर यूट्यूब का लिंक होगा, वो खोल ग्रुप
the city and forest in ancient Indian scriptures and art. So let's have a quick review about the rules and regulations of the competition.
Please be silent and pay attention here. प्रतियोगिता के नियम कुछ इस प्रकार हैं। सभी प्रतिभागियों को 9+1 अर्थात 9+1 मिनट का समय दिया जाएगा, जिसमें से 9 मिनट पूरे होने पर आपको सूचित किया जाएगा। वो अगले 1 मिनट में आपको अपनी प्रस्तुति समाप्त करनी होगी। समय सीमा का उल्लंघन आपके अंकों को परिणाम स्वरूप कम कर सकता है। माध्यम की भाषा हिंदी, अंग्रेजी अथवा द्विभाषीय हो सकती है। अभद्र व अपमानजनक भाषा का प्रयोग ना करें।
Now let's head towards our first participant, Tripathi, whose paper has the title as Forest as a Living Temple.
आदित्य हॉटस्पॉट मुझे हॉटस्पॉट दे भैया, हॉटस्पॉट दे मुझे। अरे दूसरा आदित्य है भाई, चलो क्वालिटी ट्रांसफर इसकी ठीक है, ठीक है, ठीक है, ठीक है।
Good afternoon, everyone. I am History Department from Ramlal Anand College, University of Delhi. To present my research paper on the topic Forest as a Living Temple, exploring forest deities and eco-spirituality in ancient Indian scriptures. But before starting, I would like to express my profound gratitude to the movement for providing me this opportunity. So I will be discussing the introduction, background, problem statement, methodology, key findings, results and conclusions of my paper. This paper explores the concept of forest as sacred living temples in ancient Indian scriptures rather than just geographical regions. It highlights the importance of forest deities such as Aranyani, the goddess of forest in the Rig Veda, Vanaspati, the god of sacred trees in Atharveda, and Prithvi, the goddess of earth. This study examines some section of texts like the Rig Veda, Atharveda, Ramayana and Mahabharata, showing how forests are portrayed as spaces for spiritual growth, divine encounters and sustainability. The Ramayan's Aranyakand depicts forests as places of divine experience, while the Mahabharata Aranyaka present them as settings for penance and enlightenment. These scriptures consistently portray forests as sacred places where humans connect with the divine. This paper also contrasts the traditional view with modern environmental degradation, arguing that ancient wisdom offers a model for ecological ethics. By recognizing forests as spiritual sanctuaries rather than just mere resources, society can adopt sustainable practices. This paper explores the spirituality and ecological significance of forests in the ancient Indian scriptures. It symbolizes the divine connection between nature and spirituality. This study contrasts ancient Hindu perspective on forests as living temples with modern environmental approaches that prioritize economic and scientific conservation. By revisiting ancient wisdom, the paper advocates for integrating spiritual ecology into contemporary environmental ethics. The problem statement in this research paper is that spiritual and symbolic significance of the forest and their deities in ancient Indian scriptures has not received sufficient scholarly attention. The study identifies gaps in research on how forests were perceived as sacred spaces in ancient Indian scriptures like the Rig Veda, Atharveda, Ramayana and Mahabharata. Additionally, it highlights the disconnect between the modern environmental views which focus on economic and scientific conservation and ancient Hindu tradition that integrate ecological ethics with spirituality. This paper aims to bridge this gap by exploring forest as living temple and not just considering it as economic resources. The methodology of this paper follows a qualitative research approach, primarily using textual analysis of ancient Indian scriptures. It examines primary sources such as Rigveda, Atharvaveda, Ramayana, and Mahabharata to understand the symbolic and spiritual representation of forests and their respective deities. Additionally, the study engages with the concept of spiritual ecology to analyze how these texts integrate environmental ethics with religious traditions by comparing ancient perspectives with
प्रेजेंटेशन सही नहीं दिख रही, पता नहीं क्यों
modern
लाइटनिंग की वजह
the
से।
paper bridges historical wisdom
ट्राई
with
करो ये भी बंद करनी
contemporary
है, ये बंद हो जाएगी
environmental
तो लगता
discourse.
है। हाँ वही पूरा ही डाउन हो जाएगा।
The key
चलानी
findings
पड़ेगी।
of this paper are as
थोड़ा
follows.
zoom नहीं कर
Number
सकते
one,
थे।
forest as sacred
जजेस भी
space.
दिखने चाहिए, वो भी देखने चाहिए, दोनों ही
Ancient
ना
Indian
बात ये है।
scriptures like the Rigveda, Atharvaveda, Ramayana, and
Presentation भी
Mahabharata
दिखानी है, speaker भी
depict
दिखानी है।
forests
किसी खुद
as divine realms where spiritual enlightenment and ecological balance
नहीं होगा फिर वो
coexist.
दिखेगा
Number
नहीं
two,
से। थोड़ा
the
बहुत तो दिख
role
रहा है
of
इससे।
forest deities like Aranyani,
लाइव में
goddess
शेड
of
हो रही है ना? हाँ लाइव
forest,
शेड हो रही
Vanaspati, the
है,
god
हो रही
of sacred
होगी।
forest,
तीन
and
लाइट
Prithvi, the goddess of earth. All of these symbolize the divine presence in nature, emphasizing the sacredness of forests. Spiritual and ecological integration. Ancient Hindu tradition integrate environmental conservation with spirituality that eventually treat them as living temples. Number 4. Contrast with the modern view. While ancient belief fostered respect and moral responsibility towards nature, modern industrialization and economic expansion have led to deforestation, loss of biodiversity, and environmental degradation. Number 5. Relevance to contemporary ecology. This study suggests that reviving ancient spiritual perspective can contribute to a more sustainable environment practices and help bridge the gap between modern conservation efforts and ethical responsibility towards the nature. Last but not least, ethical and sustainable approach. This paper highlights the need to view forests as sacred entities and not just economic resources. The result of this paper highlights that ancient Indian scriptures regard forests as sacred spaces intertwined with spiritual and ecological wisdom. This study concludes that forests were not merely seen as physical entities but as living temples housing deities and serving as a place of enlightenment, moral discipline and sustainable living. In contrast with modern environmental degradation, emphasizing the loss of spiritual reverence for the nature, the paper ultimately suggests that reviving this ancient perspective can foster a more ethical and sustainable approach to contemporary point of view. The conclusion of this paper emphasizes the deep spiritual and ecological significance of forests in ancient Indian traditions. It highlighted forests as seen as sacred spaces, intertwined with divine presence and moral responsibility. This study contrasts with ancient perspective with modern environmental degradation, which has resulted from viewing forests as mere economic resources rather than spiritual entities. This paper thus suggests that revisiting and integrating these ancient ecological insights can help develop a more ethical and sustainable approach to environmental conservation today. Thank you.
If anyone has the question that he or she can ask.
Spirituality.
बंद है 10
The term is eco spirituality is very complex. So it's a very new term. It's frequently used by Europeans also and by Indian also. Could you please elaborate what is actual meaning of eco spirituality in ancient India?
So eco spirituality is something that has been followed a lot in ancient wisdom, in ancient India, because when people used to consider forest as a living temple, they used to pray and they used to consider the forest, trees and everything very sacred. So whenever someone wants to give up the worldly pleasure, they went to the jungle, they went to the forest and practiced spirituality and meditation. So whenever one has to give up all these things, they went to the forest so that it could be, one could, we say that Atma का मिलन आत्मा से तभी होगा जब like we get closer to the nature.
Yeah. Like we are practicing and we used to go on mountain reason, right? Right now we get due to rapid industrialization we are living now forest. That's why we are moving towards. Okay, thank you. And my next question is that whatever methodology you have choose for this research paper, I couldn't understand. Could you please elaborate once again?
Okay. So basically, I have focused on the primary sources. First was some section of the primary sources, Rig Veda, where it was focusing the goddess, the deity, Aranyani. Then Atharveda, where it talks about Tripathi and Vanaspati. Then some section of Ramayana and Mahabharata, where there is a book Aranyaka Pal. So basically, in Ramayana, Sita and Lakshman were exiled. So they went to the jungle. Their journey was a transformation and a turning point in their life because of this shows the sacredness of the forest and the divine encounters that happened. Same goes for the Mahabharata when the Pandavas went to the jungle for 12 years. So they underwent a lot of experience. Also, they got to know about divine interactions and everything. I think all of it.
Even I have to say now, like, see, instead of tightly neglect the title forest as a living temple, where you are talking about people going and living there, living in forest, like for Aranya Bhagavad and all, they mention they live there for a certain period, right or not?
I would like to explain the title Living Forest, unlike the temple set. Unlike going to temples nowadays, people used to go there and
So we have the very differences where people manage under Aranya life, life, so we have exploring the forest, living in eco spirituality where we have explained ecology, spirituality is also separate. But there is no particular paragraph or something which talks about eco spirituality. So I wonder what is eco spirituality for all of you. And then when I see the conclusion things, we sacred ecology. So that would give, it is better. Instead of you are presenting a paper do not involve or do not welcome questions like what is eco spirituality. You have a definition for that. Do you have a definition? But you have dealt with both the things. That is the great part. You have dealt, but you are unable to do justice to that. That is what relevance में थोड़ा सा इधर उधर हुआ. Otherwise, you spoke about people living in the forest and now, yeah, the forest is in the forest. We cannot say we cannot live in the forest. Like yes, forest is living in it. Very good. But the only thing is that you have the same cycle. Eco spirituality का थोड़ा सा explain.
If you are using any word, you must have to define it. So, you said you use the word sacred. Yeah. considered anything sacred, you can't hurt it. Right? So what's your view on this dichotomy according to your studies? That if you are giving the word sacred, at one place the tribes or the other people are using the forest for their benefit as a resource. And on the other hand, we have seen that they are the places, they are sacred places. So this can be considered as a dichotomy, also different places. So according to your study, what is your view on this dichotomy?
So on my study, I think forests were considered very sacred, but people were very dependent on the forest for everything, right? From food to shelter and to everything. But there was not a lot of deforestation or something like disrespecting just by cutting it for nothing and industrialization. These were not the things. So I think this would be my explanation. I have to get back to it.
Thank you, Divya. It was a very nice presentation. It is well said that the clearest way to the universe is through a forest wilderness. Let's delve into the ancient forest through the eyes of Valmiki. With this, I would like to call Utkarsh and Bhavya, whose paper's title is From Ritual to Liturgy.
ठीक है कैमरा शरीर पे भी कैमरा शरीर पे कौन सा बोलेगा बोलो
Very warm greetings to the panel of esteemed judges, worthy audience, and everyone present over here. Let me begin this presentation by offering my deep sense of gratitude to Dr. organization for giving us this opportunity to present this paper on the topic. From ritual to liturgy, a description of forest in Valmiki Ramayana. We are jointly going to present this paper. I, Bhavya Sharma, student of History Honours from Ramlal Anand College, University of Delhi, will discuss about the sources of study and various aspects of our presentation. And my co-presenter Utkarsh Yadav will talk about thematic introduction and methodology involved in this paper. So, next slide. We have used variety of sources, which includes various primary sources, being Valmiki Ramayana, Tulsi Ramayana, and Upanishads, and secondary source being Hariprasad Shastri's Valmiki Ramayana. Book on mainly the Aranyakand, then Robert P. Goldman's translation of Ramayana of Valmiki, and Cynthia Pairosini's landscape of feelings, description of forest in the Ramayana, and various others that are listed here.
Next, we would like to address the methodology you should follow. Mainly qualitative in nature. We use the textual analysis, analyze the cultural impact and the interpretations based on the study of selected sources. The major focus was on Ramayana, which was the primary source we used, and the analysis of ritual practices in the forest, which was the focal point of the research. Next, the core idea, the introduction of the theme. The core idea of our theme was the rituals and their implications in the forest, or the Aranyakand of Ramayana. Then comes the second idea, how the forest dwellers and their interaction how the forest dwellers interacted with Ram, Lakshmana and Sita over their exile period. And it's important to understand that how forest acted as a transitional space because it dismantled social structures which existed in urban spheres like Ayodhya and while granting people new identities through its history of opposing sacred order and chaotic disorder, which is the dual nature of the forest. This also presents a new form of academic work as we have seen a lot of researches being conducted on the Aranyakant based on the ecology and the ecological aspect of it, but very little research has been done on the ritual aspect of the Aranyakant.
Now I will continue with the first theme, a forest, a site of change and rituals. So the forest section of Ramayana acts as more than a geographical setting, since this space transforms its major characters through banishment, then exposes them to rituals which can complete their spiritual and moral development. At the beginning of Aranyakant, Ram, alongside Lakshman and Sita, enter the forest as royal banishment victims. But their departure marks their spiritual regeneration and moral transformation. According to Victor Turner's notion of liminality, the transitional areas help individuals transform through challenges that make them adapt to a superior cosmic order. Great sages like Agastya and Atri, alongside Anusuya, launched several natural spiritual centers that protected Vedic teachings through conducting fire sacrifices and making ritual offerings. Sages protect spiritual paradises located at various sites to maintain dharma. The demon Tataka embodies fighting components that constantly combat against Vedic practices to create a gap between moral and immoral forces. The forest environment reveals moral testing as its central element, since site visitors encounter multiple complex moral choices. Ram faces an enormous crisis because the holy man advised him to become an ascetic, while he feels compelled to protect innocent people in accordance with his Kshatriya responsibility. Sita and Shurpanka's meeting brings fresh thinking about the compatibility of male and female roles with notions of justice. Animals also played role in Ramayana and acted as the working beings in applying dharma to illustrate that justice exists beyond human societies. The instance of vulture Jatayu bringing life to save Sita is a seminal example for this.
The next topic we analyze is the integration of forest-dwelling societies, the integration of forest communities into the mainstream population. So in this we have to first understand how forests challenge the rigid structure, the rigid social structure and hierarchical structure of Ayodhya. Ayodhya had a clear hierarchical structure and it organized society based on rank, caste, hierarchy, etc. And when these boundaries collapsed under the rule of forest, and it could be very well be understood under the beautiful description of Valmiki when he underscores that how while crossing the river Ganga, the Nishad king Buha shared a meal with Lord Ram. It completely dismantles the social structure of caste, the social structure hierarchies, etc. and beautifully displays Ganga as a metaphor of transition from the urban sphere to the forest sphere. Next, we have to understand how Ram in the forest interacts with various other tribal groups such as Vanaras, such as the forest-dwelling sages, etc. to build more deeper political alliances, dismantling the rigid Vedic ritual structure, Vedic ritualistic structure which was private in nature, and developing a more inclusive structure of rituals, which shows a transition from rituals to liturgy. The liturgy here being that the rituals which were more private in nature are being more inclusive and more structured. The local rituals of the forest, the local rituals of the Vanaras, for example, the sages, different sages had different rituals they followed,
and those are all being included and brought into the mainstream through Ram acting as a medium. Then we have to understand how this transformation from caste-based and practice-based rituals turned in, set the stepping stone for the bhakti. The bhakti and devotion aspect of rituals came from this particular aspect, where we can see the Vanaras who were fighting tribals, a warrior tribe in the forest, who were brought into the devotion of Ram, and it gave birth to the notion of bhakti, which didn't exist prior to the exile of Ram in the forest. Next, forest also acts as a medium to syncretize the Brahmanical and folk traditions of the forest into a single Hindu religious identity.
Coming next to the how forest worked as both sacred and chaotic in nature. How it was dual in nature. So in the Ramayana, the forest is an ambiguous word which harbors contradictory elements such as sanctity and chaos, safety and dangers, and religious abandonments with physical brutality. The sacred grove is an area which was defined as a religious site where sages engage in divine activities and seek divine wisdom. Now, the terrain of earth is both an unbearable place to live due to Rakshasas inhabiting the area and physically challenging the territory over which sages are faced with persecution and banishment. Must possess great strength and endurance. The Aranyakand depicts the jungle as a heavenly war zone of ethical discovery because it transcends suffering by liberty and dominates anarchy in the endeavor to re-establish cosmic equilibrium. In Ashoka groves of Lanka, Sita is held in captivity by the regime of Ravan, whereas the earth is still described as a stunning natural presence. Sita finds the loveliness of the beautiful and green garden and finds the cruel truth of imprisonment that takes away her freedom. A two-faceted images is created out of the complex relationship between nature and power and confinement. Therefore, freedom cannot be achieved in a sanctified forest. As stated by Payusini, Ashoka groves was both where Sita is imprisoned and where she has a room to reflect deeply spiritually.
The findings of the paper were basically threefold in nature. First of all, you can notice how rituals transform. How Vedic rituals, which are conducted by forest hermitages, transformed into institutional temple-based worship with time, not in the one. In the future, it set the setting stone for the same. For example, the devotion aspect we talked about. Second would be the social and religious integration. How the forest inhabitants, the Shadas, the Vanaras, and their encounter with Ram, it brought them into the Hindu religious identity fold, and it depicts how it broke the social structure, the rigid social and hierarchical structures. And the third would be the dual nature of the forest, where we analyze how forest acts as both. It's contrasting in nature by depicting it as a chaotic site of disorder where Rakshasas disrupt the Vedic rituals, etc. And how it is also a place of spiritual growth. And at the same time, where Ram seeks spiritual growth, he also has to maintain a sense of combat because he has to protect himself in the chaotic disorder of the forest. So this beautifully depicts how the forest was dual in nature.
Now coming to the conclusion, the study concludes that Aranyakand of Ramayana presents the forest as a place of religious development. The shift from ritual to liturgy in Ramayan's forest landscape is a deeper evolution of Hindu spiritual life and social order. And the forest is also two-sided, sacred and wild. It breeds divine wisdom via sages and ascetics as much as it allows space for subversive forces such as Rakshasas whose ritual pollution represents a manifestation of the universal struggle between the dharma and adharma. So with that, we conclude our day. Thank you.
So I have seen the dualism here, as you said, sacred, and other dual things, whatever it is. So now, I just have one doubt. Articulation, communication, and presentation, everything is there. If I ask you about the title, from ritual to liturgy, description of the forest is Valmiki Ramayana. The first part, okay, yeah, that was good. It gave the two gave because sequels and chemical contradiction of these things. That is good and fast also you have mentioned that there is no history. Yeah, that's better. Then do you feel like आपको लगा कि आपने पूरा title का justification मेरा just यही question है. Presentation, continuation and articulation everything I'm very well good to it. But when it comes to ritual to liturgy, यहाँ पे जो सुन रहे हैं आपके presentation को I think liturgy क्या है आपको थोड़ा लगाना पड़ेगा. You must have included the definition of liturgy. Seriously, when I saw the paper title, I have googled the term. Seriously, I'm telling you, I'm accepting this. So, ये definition, origin जो है हम लोगों को पहले वो बताना चाहिए. पूरा पेपर में 4-5 बार अपने रामायण में कोई सेम इवेंट को बार-बार बताया. उससे अच्छा अपना definition and origin भी बता देते तो एक तो पढ़ने वालों को इजी समझ में आने तक बस आई है. What is the topic? वाल्मीकि रामायण को अपने रिप्रेजेंट किया यहाँ पे. What is new that you have?
Ma'am, when you were searching for research topic, when you were researching, you were going through a lot of other research papers. We found a scarcity in this particular field by analyzing rituals inside the Navchetana' 25 or any majorly in the Navchetana' because it depicts the forest and that was key on the research. So we thought why not analyze how rituals impacted the lives of forest dwellers and how the exile of Ram.
Here we say Parva, Van Parva. So Van Parva composed more than 1,000 slokas on rituals only, and it's composed during the Mahabharata period, right? So Van Parva. And under the peace part also there are a number of rituals which is mentioned, not only rituals but in your word liturgy, puja part, EVT and method. My question is that you talked about when you were telling about your major finding. So there were transformation took place under this period, right? During the Valmiki Ramayana. But you have mentioned Navchetana' also. You have taken some, reference from Navchetana' also. Am I right? Okay. So what is comparison when we talk about the forest conservation and forest rituals and liturgy between Valmiki Ramayana and Navchetana'? First question. And my second question is that what types of transformation you have spotted under Valmiki Ramayana? Okay? I hope you got my question.
The first would be answered because during the Valmiki Ramayana, you can see that it's the primary source of this epic. It is where the Navchetana' is drawn from. So Navchetana' can analyze the aspects of Valmiki Ramayana, but Valmiki Ramayana is the basic text from which it is being drawn from. So Navchetana' might have had a little more enhanced view of ecology, etc.
He has focused in Balkand also, in Aranyakand also, and in Ayodhya Kand also, when Ram went to Gurukul and he came back and he spent more than 16 years, right? So he's describing more than Valmiki Ramayana. So you have chosen the topic of Valmiki Ramayana. That's why I'm asking that. What's the difference you have find between Valmiki Ramayana and Navchetana'?
First of all, Navchetana' is a medieval text, and the theme of the study was to be ancient in nature. The second reason would be that Navchetana' in itself is an is being drawn from Ramayana, Valmiki Ramayana. So it's already a secondary source of study.
First slide that considering Tulsi Ramayana as the primary
Primary source as in it's a very historical source. It's a very it's one of the most
How it's a historical source? How will you decide it as a historical source when we talk about Navchetana'25?
when you look into the nature of the text, you can see how it has been a little mystical. It has been a little more mystical than Ramayana, Valmiki Ramayana. But when we go on to interpret it, it goes on to tackle the medieval issues as well and the ancient issues which existed, and it gives an explanation to that. For example, the caste hierarchy and all that.
Do you think there is caste hierarchy under Navchetana'25?
There is no caste hierarchy. It tackles such issues.
Okay, so that's why he has written.
हाँ ये मेरा उसी कमेंट्स ऑन कर दो
You are considering as a secondary
कमेंट्स ऑन नहीं है
source
इसमें बंद है कमेंट्स तुझे कमेंट करना है क्या अरे कोई नहीं करनी तू कर दे इस पे कमेंट अभी ऑन नहीं होंगे नहीं होंगे अभी कमेंट्स हो जाएंगे यार अभी नहीं होंगे शुरुआत में होते हैं अभी नहीं होगा ये छोड़ किसने बोला कमेंट्स ऑन करने को कर दो देख अरे नहीं कमेंट्स ऑन नहीं होंगे अभी लाइव चल रहा है लाइव चैट तो ऑन कर दे अरे लाइव चैट कमेंट्स एक ही तो बात होगी ये कर दे भाई नहीं होगा नहीं ये देख ले नहीं है ऑप्शन नहीं हो रहा फोकस नहीं हो रहा छोड़
तो आप प्रेजेंट कॉन्टेक्स्ट को या जो बाहर के कॉन्टेक्स्ट हैं उस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में क्या आप किसी की राय का तुलना करोगे और उसको इतिहास को देखोगे, है ना? ये सबसे बड़ा
इससे कुछ आवाज़ सही आ रही है कहाँ से आ रही है दो इंसान देख एक ही देख रहा है वो भी मैं ही अरे एक देख रहा है कौन से हमारे लाख को सब्सक्राइब
Whenever you are choosing title,
मुझे रिकॉर्ड
you
करके
have to be very careful, right? Careful about the title because title is the life of your research paper, whatever you are presenting. Okay, very good and good presentation. Congratulations.
दूर वीडियो कर रहा ये तो मुझे जब ये बहुत कर रहा है ये बस कोई प्रोफेशनल सेटअप दे रखे जो एक कैमरा फोटो किया
बहुत सुंदर प्रस्तुति आपने काफी उत्कृष्ट शब्दों में प्रस्तुति दी। इसके साथ ही जब हम फॉरेस्ट की बात कर रहे हैं तो हम बढ़ते हैं अपने इंडिविजुअल की ओर जिसका नाम होता है शास्त्री। उनके पेपर का टाइटल है द सिटी फॉरेस्ट कंटिन्यूइंग थ्रू द एजेस ऑफ इंडियन हिस्ट्री। So I would like to welcome Neeraj sir.
Namaste and good afternoon everyone. I am Indira. Before I start the presentation, I want you to think of a city where nature and architecture coexist side by side, trees and temples stand side by side. And before I start, I want you to remind the word of imagination, which I have used just now. Because for nowadays this thing is little, we can say, quite impossible in large extent. In ancient India, cities were built by erasing, cities were not built by erasing forests, but by building into them. My research, the city-forest continuum through the ages of history, explore how balance and once achieved, and why it mattered today. As modern city expands, we often push nature aside, but can we learn from the past and create a better future? Through this presentation, I take you through the ancient Indian wisdom of urban planning and its relevance in nowadays. Let's begin. In the past, cities grew with nature, but today urbanization often destroys forests. We see deforestation, loss of biodiversity, and disconnect from our cultural roots. The question is, can we bring back the balance? Can modern cities integrate forests instead of erasing them? That's what my research seeks to explore. To understand how ancient India balanced cities and forests, I took multiple approach. I studied few parts of ancient Indian texts like Rig Veda, Earth Veda to see how they describe forests. I explored folk traditional stories and songs, their relevance, and how deeply people respect nature. I examined city planning in like Varanasi and Ujjain, where forests were preserved within urban space. I also studied escape groups, small protection forests seen as homes of deities. Finally, I compared this insight with modern urbanization to see what lessons can we take from the past. The Yazurved see forest as scared, pure, full of life, where sages found wisdom, ritual maintains balance, and speciality of each woods and even petals in those texts were found with the positive effect. The earthway treat forests as both protectors and challengers, offering healing herbs but also hidden danger, needing respect and harmony. But I want to highlight the most is the Rigveda. The Rigveda have two main bodies I could find. One is, I suppose many of us would be familiar with, is Tapovan. In Rigveda, Tapovan represents a scared forest near cities where sages live in harmony with nature, showing an early idea of blending urban life with forest like today's main cities planning. But the Rigveda just didn't see forest as land of living, it sees as living of divine entities as well. One of the most fascinating stories I found is the tradition of Alnayani, the goddess of forest. Unlike gods of war or wealth, Alnayani doesn't live in temples. She roams freely in the deep woods. She is neither feared nor controlled, but one honored for her gifts food, shelter, and medicine. And the best example of it I found in Rigveda is a well-known story that speaks of Arvani's kindness. A young child lost in forest was guided by her unseen presence. She lead him fruits, bearing trees, sends firefly to light his path, and let birds sing to comfort him. The next morning, villagers found him asleep under the sacred tree, untouched by danger. They believed Arnayani had protected him. From then on, they preserved part of the forest in her honors. They believed that creating a scared group would protect the forest for future and at that time as well. This practice showed that religious was not just about worship but also about conservation. This escape group ensured that forests thrived alongside the human settlement, maintaining a balance between nature and civilization. A similar balance appears in the folk tales of Bormini, the protector of Sundarban. According to legend, Bormini and her twin brother, Shah Jongoli, were sent by Allah to stabilize the justice in the forest. At that time, the land was ruled by Dakshin Rai, a tiger demon, who prey upon humans. When a poor boy named Dukha was abandoned in a jungle as a sacrifice, Bonbibi intervened and saved him. But she don't kill Dakshini. Instead, she made a pact. Humans would take only what they needed from the forest and the tiger, Dakshini Rai, found would not harm those who follow the spirit rule. This story is more than a folk tale. It's a social contact between human and the nature. Bonbibi represents comparison of fairness while Dakshini Rai symbolizes the raw and tame future of the wild. Their phrase teach the survival is not about dominance, it's about coexistence. Even today, this belief shapes life as Sundarban. Before entering the forest, people pray to Bonbibi, asking for protection. They do not overexploit the land, honoring the ancient pact. The story of Bonbibi is not just a told, it's performed. Under the name of Thayam, a traditional dramatic performance, bringing this legend to life. What makes it extraordinary is that this is performed by both Hindus and Muslims together. This is not just about storytelling, it's about cultural bridge, connecting community through a shared respect for which is Rai enter forest, Bon baby, please protect me. This line was by Dukhe to Bon baby said in the Thaya performance, and as well as Queen of the Jungle, protect us, you created by Vam. Do not take any revenge, do not harm us. By Dukhe right to Bon baby asking for the protection. This was reflect and understanding. As Dukhe begged to not protect it, and she begged to forest does not to harm it. The forest is not an enemy but a home. Their natures and sustain life. This performance keeps the story alive, reminding us the ancient balance between human and the wild. And the bigger picture that I found from Araini and Bombini, these traditions teach us something important. Forests are not just abstract of progress, they are the foundation of life itself. Asian cities coexist with nature, creating sustainability, models of urbanization. Today we face environmental crisis. These lessons are more relevant than ever. Can we rethink how we design our cities? Can we restore the balance between conflict, the greenery, the past offers us a guide. It is up to us to follow it. For conclusion, for centuries, people have wrongly believed that forests hold back human progress. But the truth is, many communities have lived in harmony with forests, worshipping and relying on them for survival. Sadly, nowadays, people often look down to those who live in a forest, calling them with Adivasis and other names in a disrespectful way. But we can't blame the current generation for the mindset. The world population was growing rapidly, and so has our need for forest protection. Instead of the funding figure, we need to find a balance between city development and forest preservation. Let's start fresh and revive our connection with nature. We must respect ancient Indian tradition of forest communities to protect the nature world that give us so much. With this, I would like to end my presentation. If anyone have any kind of question, please feel free to ask.
ये क्या है क्या है कोल्ड कॉफी छोड़ दो लक्ष्य भी लगाएगी कौन सा खुला है दिलाई मैं पी चुका हूँ पहले भाई सब पी लिया क्या हुआ क्या क्या हुआ क्या बोल रहे हो क्या बोल साइड में कोई नहीं भाई को छोड़ रहा है भाई को छोड़ रहा है कोई नहीं अब जब काम हो गया मुझे मत
So
फोन
this
करिए,
one
अब वहाँ से भगा देते हैं, आ गया।
the city forest continuum की जगह अगर हम कोई और डालते हैं, for example conserving forest as a technique
हमें तो पता है, हम डिस्कस नहीं करते, हमें पता चल जाता है।
oral history tradition, because these story are not composed
मुझे ये करने दे, ठीक है?
in proper manner, but these are there are number of authors and stories which tell us how to conserve our forest, how these forests are sacred, and when we are making habitation. So we always be careful and mindful to take the forest hazard. So I would suggest one thing. Please choose title very carefully whatever you are describing. As ma'am said that you are doing justice with first paper, so it's correctly true. And my one suggestion is that when you have started one thing like introduction, right? So you have to highlight why you choose this topic, right? And the shortcomings. For example, if you are writing research paper, you have to highlight what is the shortcomings right now and what you are going to highlight. Okay? Thank you.
I have a suggestion for everybody writing the article. हम इंडियन कल्चर के बारे में लिख रहे हैं मगर टाइटल्स बहुत ही वेस्टर्न टाइटल्स दे रहे हैं, तो सोच लीजिए अभी थोड़ा सा इंडियन का भारत के का दिखे टाइटल्स में भी तो अच्छा होगा, क्योंकि पूरा आर्टिकल को आपके अपने तरीके से लिख के ओनली टाइटल के लिए AI को संपर्क मत कीजिए। आई रिक्वेस्ट यू ऑल, बिकॉज द टाइटल्स आर रियली गुड इन वेस्टर्न पर्सपेक्टिव, सच्ची में बहुत ही
While you are using terms Adivasi, just use the Adivasi. Adivasi means indigenous people, Asthaniya log. Adivasi. When we talk about this is the Gavar. Gavar means Dravid, living, residing in rural area. So when we talk about the Gavar, it means that he uneducated person, not well-behaved person. But this is not true actually. So we have to highlight and we choose the term very carefully, right? तो आपको ये काम बहुत अच्छे से करना है. You are learning, I know, but you have to learn lots of things. Thank you.
सजेशन देना फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल पहले तो बहुत अच्छी बात है कि आपने जो है फोक ट्रेडिशंस और जो लोकल वो है ना वो एक्सपेक्ट टच किया, क्योंकि ना जनरली लोकल साइडलाइन कर दिया जाता है. सजेशन ये है कि ट्राई टू यूज मोर फुटनोट्स और रेफरेंसेस थोड़ा सा.
बहुत सुंदर प्रस्तुति. दिशा सिंह, मैं आपके लिए कुछ शब्द कहना चाहूँगा कि मितम च सारम च वचो ही वाग्मता, और आपकी बाड़ी में हमें उसी वाग्मता के दर्शन हुए.
Really, it was a wonderful presentation. Now, E.O. Wilson has once said that nature holds the key to our aesthetic, intellectual, cognitive, and even the spiritual satisfaction. With this thought, let's welcome a spiritually awakening presentation by Sneh Patra, whose paper's title is From Royal Exile to Spiritual Awakening.
In the forest, at the foot of trees, he dwells wherever he finds shelter. As the night ends, he moves not elsewhere, for he seeks no worldly attachment. With this, good afternoon to one and all present over here. The verse I started with is verse 705 from Sutta Nipata, and it describes how Buddhist monks seek solitude in forests, living under trees as part of their renunciation. The forest is not just a physical place, but a spiritual sanctuary where transformation occurs. With this, let me come to the title of my paper. So the title of my paper is From Royal Exile to Spiritual Awakening, Forests as Sacred Spaces in the Jungle Forest. Next slide. While talking about forests as cultural spaces, we will look how forests serve as a center for meditation, personal transformation and spiritual awakening. Jataka shows many examples on how previous lives of Buddha, that is Bodhisattva, got moral lessons and insights into the nature of wisdom, compassion and self-realization. Visual images and architecture related to the Buddhist tradition shows how ancient Indians viewed natural world, forest and their spiritual significance. Next slide. The paper broadly categorizes the role of forest as space for exile and transformation, spaces for meditation and ascetic practices, a place of moral trials and testing, and at the end I have looked to the symbolism of forest in Jataka. As two papers before me have said this, Banvas of Ramayana had sent Ram to Banvas, that means to the forest or stay in forest, not to an ocean or jail, for 14 years. Forest stays symbolized necessary journey of self-purification, renunciation of worldly attachment, pursuit of spiritual wisdom. And similarly for Buddhists, forests were transformative spaces that facilitated Bodhisattva's spiritual growth. So looking at the first topic, forest as spaces for exile and transformation, I have taken examples from two Jatakas, that is Vesantara Jataka and Siddhi Jataka. Coming to Vesantara Jataka, in Jataka, it is a story of Prince Vesantar, also known for his generosity, and therefore he got exiled from the royal palace to the forest. And these are the following points, how his life got transformed in the forest. I have elaborated this in my paper, but due to constraint of time, I am not repeating these points. And can we look into the next slide? There is a picture. So this is a picture. At the below of the picture, it is written where it has been taken from. So the dense greenery and mountain terrain suggests a transition from civilization to untamed wilderness, where karmic consequences unfold and moral lessons are learned. Both physical and spiritual journey, that means the green part and the reddish part, ultimately striving for wisdom and liberation, which is the main goal in Buddhism. Now coming to the next Jataka. Yes, Siddhi Jataka. Just a second. So the Siddhi Jataka unfolds the story of King Siddhi, and it is an interesting story as a hawk was chasing a dove to kill and eat that dove. So the dove came to rescue to King Siddhi, and King Siddhi saved the dove, and in return he offered his own flesh to the hawk. So he was also retreated to forest, and these are the points where what he got from the forest. Can we look into the picture? So this is an architectural example where king is offering his flesh to the hawk. This is Gandhar style craftsmanship blending. It is having Hellenistic as well as Indian artistic influence. Hellenistic because of the drapery and realistic human expressions. And as we can see, the attendants, ascetics and even celestial beings are witnessing the king's noble act. I have said that celestial being because one in the middle of the figure is having halo behind his head, and the scale-like structure the person is holding, it symbolizes the balance, which is very ideal in Buddhism, the balance between materialistic sacrifices and spiritual merit. Now coming down to the next point, forest as spaces for meditation and ascetic practices. Forest as a sanctuary where they can engage, I mean the Bodhisattvas can engage in deep contemplation away from distractions of society. So I have taken example from Mahosadha Jataka. It is the story of Bodhisattva Mahosadha, who is known for his intelligence and problem-solving nature. He retreats to the forest for intense meditation, seeking to understand the suffering of the world and develop a deeper sense of compassion. And these are the points what he gets to learn from the forest. Next slide. So the next point is forest as a place of moral trials and testing. Bodhisattvas underwent significant moral trials. These trials often test the Bodhisattva's character, commitment to compassion and capacity for self-sacrifice, And in this I have taken example from two Jatakas, that is Takali Jataka and Sanghamitra Jataka. Next slide. Talking about Takali Jataka, it is a story where Bodhisattva is born as a mango tree in a royal garden. The tree bears sweet and delicious fruit. A deceitful, bitter cucumber vine grows near it and wraps itself around the tree. When the king comes to enjoy the mangoes, he notices the vine and mistaken it as a part of the greater tree, and he orders both to be cut down, believing that the mangoes would have been spoiled by now. So this shows that even noble beings can suffer due to bad companion. Moving on to the next slide. So this is a Thai-style painting, and it shows a Thai-style house surrounded by a dark forested area. This shows a moralistic event. Taka Jataka shows forest as a place where virtues and vices are revealed, often leading to karmic justice. The dark scene also suggests a contrast between human civilization and untamed natural world. Whereas maybe the painting also depicts that greed, deception and materialistic wants leads to confinement and suffering in the house, whereas wisdom and renunciation in wilderness brings liberation. Next slide. Talking about Sanghamitra Jataka, here the Bodhisattva is in the form of a monk. He retreats to forest to practice asceticism and endure physical hardship, and these are the points what he gets to learn from the forest. Can we move to the picture? This picture is very interesting. This is Sanghamitra Theri, daughter of Emperor Ashok, arriving in Sri Lanka with a sapling of sacred Bodhi tree. This event is a significant moment in Buddhist history, symbolizing the spread of Buddhism in Sri Lanka. The Bodhi tree sapling in this image represents a direct link to the sacred tree in Bodh Gaya, emphasizing the role of forest in spiritual awakening. Cutting down of forests or harming trees is often discouraged, showing early Buddhist environmental ethics. The act of bringing Bodhi tree sapling in the image aligns with promoting conservation and reverence for nature. This painting not only portrays a historical event but also reflects deeper Buddhist values tied to nature, particularly the sacred roles of trees and forests in sustaining spiritual and ecological harmony. Next slide. So coming down to the symbolism of trees, the trees in Buddhist painting, which I'll explain in later painting, suggests that trees are often shown as symbol for wisdom, interconnectedness, nurturing qualities of nature. Bodhi tree signifies spiritual awakening, spaces of shelter, meditation, and a place where Bodhisattva receives spiritual insight. Now the last image. So I guess this is a modern painting which has been copied from various places. So this does not have writing below it. This image shows Lord Buddha under a tree. He is likely under the Bodhi tree where he attained enlightenment. The surrounding figures appear to be celestial beings or demons, possibly referencing the temptation of Mara. Other forces are trying to distract Buddha. On the left, we can see an aggressive figure wielding weapon on Buddha and trying to harm him. While on the right hand side, we can see seducing or admiring figures. This contrast highlights the struggle between materialistic desire and spiritual awakening. The lush greenery and flowers shows harmony with nature, reinforcing Buddhist ideals of peace and enlightenment. Next slide. I have included the historiography in the paper, but I have not mentioned it here. So in conclusion, I would like to say, initially when I started writing the paper, my entire focus was that I will show only the sacred spaces, but while coming to historiographically, I have noticed that apart from multi-dimensional nature of forest, initial writing shows forest only as a place of solitude and meditation, whereas the recent day or recent scholars, modern scholarship, shows the duality of nature. It has also shown nature being wild and the co-human existence. Forests are a space of transformative journey. So at the end, I would like to quote verse 719 from Sutta Nipata. Just as a tree with a firmly unharmed root continues to bear fruit and thrive, so too do wise monks, grounded in virtue, live in harmony with truth and righteousness. Thank you.
दो लोग देख रहे हैं। सुपर चैट मांग लूँ? जूते मार
Because he was later recreated in forest.
बपोर में भी नहीं ज्ञान दृष्टि वाले में क्या है?
उसके बाद मैंने जान लिया कि वो तो फिर ऐसे उस टाइम पे
अभी कुछ नहीं किया
जानबूझ के मैंने किया एक्चुअली मैंने कंफ्यूज कर दिया मैंने सोचा जानबूझ में मैंने 2 मिनट
कौन देते लेटर में कर दे उसको लेटर कर दिया उसको जीरो है ये तो इसलिए कर रही है ताकि रिकॉर्डेड रहेगा पब्लिक कर देंगे बाद में पब्लिक करो मतलब ये लाइव हो गया ये प्राइवेट में चला जाएगा फिर उसका पब्लिक कर देंगे पब्लिक कौन देख रहा है तेज नहीं है जिसको देखना होगा
circumstances और surroundings है वो क्या किस प्रकार से दिख रहे हैं
बहुत ही सुंदर प्रस्तुति। बहुत ही सुंदर प्रस्तुति। अर्थ गौरव से युक्त आपका वक्तव्य अत्यंत प्रशंसनीय है।
We shape our buildings, thereafter they shape us. This quote of Winston Churchill defines what architecture is. It is the reflection of loyalty of the past to the present. So, to throw some light upon the urban planning and architecture in ancient India, I am inviting our next team, Preeti and Vishta.
अभी तो बड़ी बात है। ये तो सुन लेगा। अब बनेगा एक अब बढ़ेगा एक पीछे बैठ के देख ले पीछे ऐसे आराम से देख ले इंसानों की तरह देख रहा गाड़ी तो बोला अकेला सिलेंडर अकेला हो जाएगा
A very good evening everyone. I am Nishta along with my co-presenter.
Hello everyone, I am Preeti.
And we are going to present on the topic Urban Planning and Architecture in Ancient India, Scriptures and Art. Can we have the next slide please? So here you can see what we are going to explain. First of all, we'll give a brief introduction and then the literature review. Then we'll go with the urban planning, Vastu Shastra, followed by science behind Vastu Shastra, and then types of settlement in ancient India. Whenever we talk about the word Vastu, we often think about it in a religious or cultural interpretation. But when we studied Vastu Shastra, we found it to be a discipline which is an amalgamation of various different subjects and fields like geography, astronomy, psychology, as well as historical and other interpretations. There are various ancient treatises which have been written and which highlights the essence of Vastu time and again. May I have the next slide please? Here you can see some of the treatises or the texts which we have referred to. First is the Arthashastra by Kautilya. From this text we have taken fortification, zoning and other town and village layouts. The second text is Building Architecture of Sthapatya Ved by the renowned V. Ganpati Sthapati. Then the next one is V. N. Shukla's works in which we have taken the highlights of town planning and Vedic text and literature, followed by several other research papers which we have mentioned in the reference sections.
In introduction, within the trajectory of human advancement, the development of societies and the scale of urban design appears as a crucial storyline. Think it as a assembling of colossal puzzle. Our procedures started in little communities searching for security and affinity. Over the course of time, these communities gradually developed into a very complex society, establishing the foundation for what we currently refer to as a civilization. In today's urban areas, town planning is a combination of preserving Indian ancient structure and accordingly new ideas. The roots of urban communities in Indian subcontinent may be traced back to 2300 BC. The ancient Indian methods of town design primarily focus on the cardinal direction and geometric concept. The ancient knowledge of architecture and construction in India holds profound influence not only in the form of its physical structure, arrangement and design, but also the spiritual, geographical, social
and sustainable consideration kept in mind while developing this field of study. Next slide.
If we look at Vastu Shastra, it is an Upaved of the Atharved, which is some Upaved, that is Shilp Shastra, or you can also say it to be a Sthapatya Ved, Shilp Ved or Sthapatya Ved, and from that we derive the Vastu Shastra. Vastu Shastra is not just a single book to be mentioned here, it is an amalgamation of various different books, and those all books actually highlights the concepts of Vastu Shastra. It is not only limited to the outer appearance or the architecture, that actually deals with the 8 cardinal directions, or the orientation basically refers to the directions, right? So here you can talk about, like, you have the 4 cardinal directions, your north, south, east, west, and followed by the northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest. The next point is the examination or selection of site, which is the Bhupariksha. In the Bhupariksha, we actually involves several concepts, several findings, like how is the soil type, what is the permeability level of the soil, how is the texture of soil, and other aspects. Next we are followed by the Man aspect, that is the proportionate measurement of building. The Man aspect refers to the length, breadth, height. These are the mathematical concepts. Next we have the 6 canons of Vedic architecture, which includes Ayadi, which is also known as Ayadi Sadhvara. Ayadi is a very mathematical concept, and it includes length into breadth or a rectangular shape of architecture or any structure. Then the 6 canons, the Sadhvara is also referred to as the base, and then followed by the column, then the entablature, then the ear or wings or the curn, and then the roof, and then the dome. And the final one is the aesthetics of the building. Aesthetics of the building is very optional in nature. Whether you wish to beautify your building or structure or not, that is up to your choice. Vastu Shastra time and again gives you a lot of flexibility. Whether you wish to make your structure this way or that way, that is up to you, as well as the area or the location where you stay. In this slide, we are going to, I am only choosing 2 points here. We have 4 to 5 points. The first one is unraveling the science behind Vastu Shastra. So here, we don't just focus on 5 or the Panch Mahabhuts, we also take into account sound, light and pulse. If we talk about the scientific base, I'll just give 2 points. The first is the orientation towards east. If you look at the structure of the globe, we are in the northern hemisphere. So as for that, the sun rays actually comes from the east for us first. Even the sun rays, the morning sunlight, why do we prefer the morning sunlight is also a different reason. It has a scientific reason, because at that time the bacteria growth, and then the morning sunlight, the UVC rays in particular, actually reduces the amount of bacteria within the house. So the morning sunlight is very beneficial as compared to the day sunlight. And then the second point is the irregular shape of building or structure. Here I mentioned in the paper a major earthquake in 1985 in the Mexican city, where 15% of the structures actually collapsed because of the reason of the irregular shape. Whereas Vastu Shastra clearly mentions that there should be a regular shape in the structure of building.
So urban planning has been an integral part of human civilization, shaping how societies lived, traded and prospered. In ancient India, urban planning was not just about infrastructure but also about the philosophy, harmony and sustainability. Evidence of town planning in ancient India may be found in several Indian sculptures and Purans. Derived from 4 Vedas, there are several ancient Indian treatises on town design that classify communities largely according to their purpose, establishment, location and the kind of activity. This field is highly influenced by the Vastu Shastra of ancient India and its principles. Ancient Indian town planning was a well-structured system that combined spiritual, social, geographical and scientific principles to create self-sustaining settlements. In the wisdom of ancient Indian texts, villages and cities planning is meticulously outlined to ensure the well-being and prosperity of communities. Most of the plans are rectangular or space square and do not appear to differ in essentials And also each village was surrounded by the wall and used for defense purpose. 10th slide. So now the types of settlement. Ancient Indian settlements are varied in scale and purpose, categorized based on functions, population and administrative importance. India has a long tradition of architecture which one can understand from the existing monuments, archaeological studies as well as from the ancient texts on this field. Since ancient times, human settlements have been shaped by geography, climate, economy and cultural values. In India, these settlements were not random clusters of houses, but was carefully planned and categorized based on the purpose, function and location. So the first classification is according to size. The first classification is Rajdhani, that is the capital city, which is politically significant cities serving as the capitals of kingdoms or empires. It is well fortified with palaces, administrative buildings and strategic defense. Examples of this Rajdhani capital cities are Patliputra, that was the Mauryan capital, and Hastinapur, Mahabharat era capital. Second is Kandhvar. These settlements were strategically located near water bodies, forests or trade routes. The layout was influenced by the cosmic elements aligning human habitation with the natural energies. So next classification is according to shape and purpose. So under this, settlement were designed in various geometric and organic forms to suit environmental conditions and societal needs. The first one is swastik, Nandevarta, symbolizing prosperity. These had multiple roads radiating outward, ensuring efficient movement. Then the second one is Padmak, which is the lotus-shaped settlement. The settled Padmak refers to settlements that were designed in the shape of a lotus. The name comes from the resemblance of the lotus, which is considered as a symbol of purity, prosperity and divided order in Indian culture. Examples like Jaipur, Vijayanagar and Nalanda in Bihar. The third one is the Karmuka, that is a bow-shaped settlement. The term Karmuka itself means bow in Sanskrit, symbolizing a city or a town designed in a curved or semicircular shape. Examples are Dwarka in Gujarat and Patliputra, modern day Patna. So, in conclusion, the contemporary generation usually looks upon Vastu Shastra as a religious document of sectarian nature, but overlooks the very significant and secular nature of this discipline, created on the foundation of mathematical calculations and geometric knowledge, taking into account the need and welfare of the people. Town planning was a highly advanced in ancient India, and the proper layout of many have been founded by archaeologists and historians as well. An efficient town planning played a major role in the sustenance of various empires, kingdoms and dynasties over the centuries. Thank you.
My question is that you have highlighted ancient India, okay? But you didn't highlight the time period, right? You're talking about Vijayanagar Empire as well at the same time. When Vijayanagar Empire came into limelight? When Vijayanagar came into existence? So what was the time period? So in ancient India or ancient India? So you have to be very careful when you are using timeline, okay? This is my suggestion. And my second question is that when you're talking about the urban planning, you have mentioned that our term is Kheta, right? I don't know how to pronounce it rightly or it's a Kheta? Okay. So Kheta is a settlement of a small town according to you, inhabited only by Sudra. It's usually in the vicinity of a river or a mountain. The people find their life living here with the hinterland is still agriculture, fishing and traditional occupation. The people of this town will usually be saved fast. Do you really think what was the time period when you were mentioning Kheta was set habitation for Sudra people only? Could you please tell me the time period? No. How can you use the term? It's very controversial. You know, the Kheta is a term which represents community, right?
And community not only belong to one caste. Even right now in North India, in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, people will use a word kheta. Kheta means a boundary, line, interline. It was not a habitation for Sudras people only. I have never thought. I'm sorry to interrupt, but don't avoid the word and avoid the things which is controversial. Right? Thank you.
Beautiful. Both of your presentations. As I have a few suggestions here, when dealing with the technological terminology, you should always use a glossary at the end of your article because not every person is from history background and if it is introductory article, okay, then you have to give it. And the secondary thing is that when your theme entirely is on like city and forest, both together, very good that it's a different paper. And there are some differences in how you run. Like I have one slogan, just now I got it in my mind. Like Ashramanicha, Gramanjara, Goshancha, Nagaranicha, Tapovanani, Ramyani, Vanami, Pavanani. That is the one. Where what is the definitions of different, जैसे आप वास्तु के बारे में बात कर रहे थे. तो introductory जो ड्राइंग होते हैं, यहाँ पे introduction वो बेहतर तब होगा जब आप एक ऐसा इंडियन स्क्रिप्चर का एक स्लोगन को लाके आप उसके साथ कंटिन्यू करेंगे क्योंकि अपना थीम है स्क्रिप्चर्स को लाना. इट वाज नॉट आपने गणपति स्थापति का रेफरेंस दिया, रेफरेंसेस में मुझको विकिपीडिया के बहुत सारे रेफरेंसेस मिले हैं जो कि हम बिल्कुल भी प्राइमरी सोर्सेस या ऐसा विकिपीडिया रेफरेंसेस सोर्सेस नहीं लेना चाहिए. पढ़ के उसका ओरिजिनल प्राइमरी सोर्स क्या है उसके बारे में लिखते तो और भी बेहतर होता. इट्स नॉट अ थिंग, आई एम जस्ट गिविंग यू सजेशन. Okay, otherwise the presentation is completely technical and as ma'am said, विजयनगर पीरियड में हमसे कहा जा रहा है एंशिएंट क्या है, मेडिकल क्या है, मॉडर्न क्या है, हिस्टोरियंस नहीं लगाएंगे कौन. That is what we have to keep in mind and otherwise so it's very good. You should have that care in you to present such a paper. क्योंकि अगर ये आप रांची में प्रेजेंट किए तो हम लोग सोचते कि चलो बच्चे हैं कुछ नहीं बोलते हैं अगर रिपीट होगा लार्जर स्केल होगा बहुत सारे क्वेश्चन आपके तरफ आएंगे जैसे आपके रेफरेंसेस को लेके जैसे टाइम पीरियड को लेके और नॉट मेंशनिंग द स्क्रिप्चर्स एंड यू हैव रिटन कंप्लीट आर्टिकल ऑन दैट. सो इट्स नॉट मैंडेटरी बट इट कुड बी क्या बोलते हैं इसको अच्छा ब्यूटिफाइज योर आर्टिकल. दैट्स ऑल. We like our beauty, so we have to write articles beautifully. Understood? So we have to write everything. जितना सोलह श्रृंगार होता है पूरा उतना सोलह श्रृंगार आर्टिकल. Differences हो गया, nursery हो गया, methodology हो गया, आपका scope हो गया. So there are you have to bring 16 elements in the article also. Yes, seriously, it is a daring step. That technical paper नहीं लेते. इतिहास को रामायण महाभारत and वाल्मीकि रामायण paper like this. I saw the paper. It is really good that you have to go forward with this. It is not complaining. It is just a suggestion. Give a glossary of the terms. Yeah. That's it.
So वैसे तो मैंने बताया but I would say it's a general paper. It is very good. General paper तो बहुत अच्छा है. आपने जो टर्म्स का डेफिनेशन दिया है या वो बहुत अच्छा पेपर में टर्म्स का डेफिनेशन नहीं आया. आपको ज़्यादातर टर्म्स का डेफिनेशन आपने प्रॉपर्ली दिया है वो बहुत अच्छी बात है. बट सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट एक सजेशन इसमें ये रहेगा कि जैसे आपने दिन निर्णय का यूज़ किया है या भू परीक्षा का यूज़ किया है या मान का यूज़ किया है यहाँ पर ज़्यादातर टर्म्स में जहाँ पर वो शब्द इस्तेमाल हुआ है उन्हें प्राइमरी रेफरेंसेस हैं बट जहाँ पर ये वर्ड इस्तेमाल किया जाता है उस वर्ड का क्या प्राइमरी सोर्स है कहाँ पर वो यूज़ किया गया है. अगर वो इसमें ऐड रहेगा तो ये बहुत अच्छा पेपर हो सकता है.
Thank you so much. It was a mesmerizing presentation. It provided us deep insights into the Vastu Shastra to understand the urban planning and architecture in ancient India.
लास्ट पेपर है कौन सा था
तो चलिए इसके साथ ही बहुत ही विलंब न करते हुए चलते हैं अपनी अंतिम प्रतिभागी की ओर जिनका नाम है हर्ष तोमर और इनकी पेपर का शीर्षक है एंशिएंट इंडियन सिटी लाइफ एंड रूरल कॉम्प्लेक्स।
वर्ड जितने हैवी हैवी बोल के मार ली चल भाई चल बाहर आ जा क्या हो गया
Good evening, everybody.
जीतेगा मैच
Today,
इसके एटीट्यूड से लग रहा है
a journey that explores an intricate relationship between ancient medieval Indian city life and rural settlements.
चल ले यार
Now, before we begin, thought-provoking
किसने
question:
लगाया
What if everything that
चलना तू ढोकला
whatever everything that occurred in the past was influenced by the future? At first, this may sound paradoxical, but by the end of this presentation, I assure you that it will make perfect sense. Cities do not emerge overnight; they evolve, and yet not all rural settlements transform into urban ones. Why is that? What determines which villages flourish into bustling cities, while others remain rural? This is the core of my study, analyzing urban-rural dichotomy while recognizing that urbanization is itself an output of rural economy or rural society. The definition of villages and cities, much like civilization itself, has evolved over time. The Rig Veda, the term grama is used for two distinct ways. The settled community engaged in rituals and sacrifices, and a mobile group, reflecting the nomadic nature of early societies. As civilization progressed, settlements became more structured. The Samarangana, Sutradhar, and 11th century treaties written by King Dhar of Madhya Pradesh, King Bhoja of Dhar, Madhya Pradesh, emphasizes that village planning was not random. It reflected a broader national vision. Ancient India, despite its very vast geography, maintained a strong cultural and religious unity. As Kiernan in 1998 states that cities are more than just large, densely populated settlements. They are hubs of administration, trade, craft, production, and cultural activities. Ancient Indian texts, including Vedas, Purana, Arthashastra, and Shukraniti, provide meticulously breakdown of town planning based on Vastu. The typical square or rectangular in layout, that is the key feature of ancient villages, and another is central shrine dedicated to a village GD, reservoirs and communal halls for assemblies, strong agricultural quotas, etc. Villages were self-sufficient, functioning as economic units, where local artisans, farmers, and key traders coexisted in structural hierarchy. There are certain classifications of ancient Indian settlements. By size, I have taken three: Rajdhani, Patana, Grama. Grama is the rural village, Patana is the secondary urban center, and Rajdhani is the king's capital. By shape, Dandaka, that is rectangular, for example, the Ujjain. Nandyavarta, that is in circular shape or spherical shape, that was Madurai. Sarvatavadra, that was grid pattern, and Padmata was the lotus shape. For example, now we'll move towards the case studies. The journey began in 1872 when Alexander Cunningham rediscovered Harappa, unknowingly standing atop the remains of highly advanced Bronze Age civilizations. Scholars like Grigori Shelley, Robert McAdam, Gordon Stewart later contributed to our understanding of what defines a city, debating whether the urbanization was a sudden evolution or a gradual evolution shaped by technology, social structures, and political power. The transition from early to mature urban phases wasn't always smooth. Agricultural evidences suggest that natural disasters and social changes and even destructive events such as fires or earthquakes may have happened. Yet despite these disruptions, Harappan cities flourished, becoming hubs of trade, governance, and cultural innovation. Magadha. The emergence of urban center was one of the defining features of Magadha. Cities like Rajgir, Patliputra were not just the capital cities, but also the vibrant hubs of trade, culture, and administration. Other urban centers like Vaishali, Gaya, Bodhya, Nalanda and Champa played significant role in trade developments and religious developments as well and in education as well. Social structure in Magadh. The social structure in urban Magadh was dictated by a Varna system. The Brahmins, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudras are clearly defined goals, and Greater Magadh region exhibited some deviations from orthodox Vedic traditions, where Kshatriyas sometimes held a higher status than Brahmins. Despite this, undisputed and caste discrimination persisted, not just like that, but relegating certain communities to mainly labor. Economic foundations of Magadh. The economic strength of Magadh lay its fertile lands, particularly in the Gangetic Plains. The rich alluvial soil allowed the agricultural surplus, which supported the urbanization as well. There were certain kinds of taxation system as well, such as Baga, share of agriculture produce that was given, Bali, Hiranya, that was cash taxes, Sholkika tolls on trade. Additionally, Vishnu was extracted from Vaishyas and Shudras, which played a crucial role in state-sponsored projects. Life in Magadh villages. While cities showcase the grandeur of Magadh, its villages form the backbone of the empire. The advanced irrigation techniques such as ahars and pans enhance agricultural productivity. The rural economy revolved around agriculture with crops such as rice, barley, pulses. The village was the fundamental administrative unit led by Gramata, that was village headman, and who managed tax collection, local governance, etc. Vijayanagar. Now we are moving towards the middle part. Vijayanagar, a powerful smooth South Indian empire that flourished between 1336 to 1646 AD, founded by Haryana Bhukkara, and the Vijayanagar stood as bastion of Hindu culture. The empire's capital, Vijayanagar, more known as Hampi, was thriving metropolis. Their political power, cultural richness, economic success covered a city of grandeur temples, bustling markets, and diverse communities. Women played diverse role in both urban and rural settings. In the city, some women were scholars and poets, while others engaged in trade and temple services. Figures like Ganga Devi, who wrote Madhura Vijayam, highlighted the intellectual contribution of women. In conclusion, the Vijayanagar Empire was a remarkable civilization where the urban grandeur and rural stability coexisted and maintained the balance between the two. Its achievements in architecture, administration, trade, and cultural development left an enduring impact in South Asia. Now the conclusion. What if everything that occurred in the past was influenced by the future? What if all the past actions were driven by the satisfaction and the fulfillment of what was yet to come? Take the Harappan civilization for instance. Some of the cities had covered drains, but why? Perhaps they experienced uneasiness or illness due to the open drains. Yet the real reason was covering them was not just the present discomfort. It was to prevent the dangerous consequences in the future. Their actions were saved by awareness of what was to come, not just what had already happened. This raises a profound question. Does the present even exist? In terms of time, the present is nothing but a fleeting millisecond. A reflection of past and an immediate reaction to the future. Everything is past until you hear this line. So where is present? For me, present exists only in our actions and reactions. Every taxation system, revenue collection methods, town planning strategy we have discussed was not merely a response to the past, but deliberately an action for the future, shaped by the future itself. What we study as
thank you. What's your name, sorry? Your name is Navchetana'25. Harsh, congratulations, Harsh. You have worked hard to prepare this research paper. But before asking the question, I have a suggestion. When you are using the terms ancient and medieval Indian city planning,
So I would recommend a rural life rather than instead of city life. Why? There is a number of terms which is mentioned in these Jatakas stories and this text. Nagaram, Nagam, Nagar, Nagar. So there are a number of terms, but there is no specific definition of Nagar and city. So when you are using the term city, it means that you are, privatizing the topic. So you have to choose the word that is rural life. Okay. And now come in the next, like when you have done a comparative study, right, between Harappa, Magar, and Vijayanagar Empire. So these are you have used the terms Magadhan era. So could you please elaborate what is meant by Magadhan era, why you used this term?
Magadhan era means that all the dynasties that ruled in that region, and मैम जो भी इन्होंने वहाँ पे डेवलपमेंट्स किए मैम उनके बारे में बताया थोड़ा सा और मैम मगरन एरा का मतलब ये है कि जब तक वो फ्लरिश करता रहा अपनी 3.8 मतलब जब उसका एंड हुआ है वो वहाँ से मतलब कैसे डेवलपमेंट वहाँ पे हुआ है वहाँ पे
Is you considering as a time period Magar was a center? It has been center for a long time period. Many dynasty came into existence. Okay. My second question is that when we talk about the Vijayanagar Empire, you know that there is no alternative of Vijayanagar Empire's art and architectures. And at the same time, when we talk about Mauryan dynasty, their art and architecture, although there are very few remains are available, and from Bulandi Bagh excavation, where Raj Mahal was existed over there. But very few remains are available right now. Only Indira and Navchetana' 25 about Raj Mahal. So when we talk about the palaces and Attalikas and story, multi-story building, which is constructed in the Vijayanagar Empire and Mauryan Empire, what is similarity between them? And another thing is that when we talk about the art and architecture, what types of similarity you are finding in Vijayanagar Empire and Mauryan Empire?
I mean, Vijayanagar Empire and Mauryan Empire in the architecture. अगर हम देखते हैं कि कोई पीछे से कोई टाइप के निकलता है ना सीखने का आने वाली जनरेशन को ढूंढने का वो अपनी आर्किटेक्चर को कोई सी भी फील्ड हो चाहे इकोनॉमी और एजुकेशन वो नेक्स्ट जनरेशन में वो पास कर सकते हैं और मैम जो अच्छी चीज़ होती है वो अडॉप्ट भी होती है मैम बहुत सारे आर्किटेक्चर डिजाइन्स हैं I will name them because that was
please tell me one or two examples.
ये वाली गलती इसकी
Like long-shaped arc, they got it from the Mauryan Empire, because the Mauryan Empire was the first dynasty who constructed large arc. So they have used it in palaces frequently and frequently. And when we talk about the art form, there is a statue which find from Mother. There actually is statue, and he's standing with a hand, right? She's holding hand. So the same sculpture also we find from Vijayanagar Empire with some modifications. This is the metal sculpture, but somehow they have.
but you can use the term is like mother assistant time period to study. ठीक है?
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद हर्षी। आप सबकी प्रस्तुतियों के बाद सिर्फ कुछ पंक्तियां कहता हूँ कि तेजस्वी सम्मान खोजते नहीं गोत्र बतला के, पाते हैं जैसे प्रशस्ति अपना कर्तव्य दिखला के, हीन मूल की ओर देख जब गलत कहने या ठीक वीर खींच कर ही रहते हैं इतिहासों में। एक बार आप सब के लिए तालियां बजाइए।
With this, I would like to inform you all that the results will be disclosed to you all within 3 to 5 minutes after evaluation by our judges.
भी कोई प्रोग्राम होता है मुझे समझा भी इनसे उनसे बहुत अलग लगता है कि कोई भी चीज़ पे वो लोग स्वयं रिप्रेजेंट करते मेरे लोग यस यू आल्सो रिप्रेजेंट है कभी भी वो बहुत बड़ी करता है मैं भी 2 लाइन बोलना चाहता हूँ वो तो चलते रहता है इतना स्पीच मिला उससे ज़्यादा उसको पढ़ सकते हैं इनका फिर मेरे लिए सही लगता है
When you are presenting paper on ancient India, you should focus on native language first. Because the most of the sources has written in Sanskrit language, either in Pali or Prakrit. So we cannot, learn Prakrit and Pali, but yes, we can at least learn Sanskrit. तो कम से कम थोड़ा सा आप पढ़ने की कोशिश करो. And if you cannot learn Sanskrit, learn Hindi at least. So the problem is that we have spotted almost in all paper you are using the terms like liturgy, everything. So you have to be very careful what is the actual meaning of liturgy. It was existed or not. ऐसा ना हो कि कहीं हम फ्यूडलिज्म की तरफ ठोकने की कोशिश ना करें. यहाँ पर सामंतवाद का है, सामंतवाद meaning सामंतवाद has a different meaning, but we are imposing feudalism with सामंतवाद. So we have to be very careful. Okay, the use term. Don't worry. If you are presenting paper in English, use the term Adivashi, use the term Samantwad, use the term Dakshi. There is no, need to use the terms and fancy word. ये fancy word एक ऐसी जाल बिन दिए हैं, बुल दिए हैं, जिसमें हमको फंसा के रख दिया है. आज हम use करते हैं frequently eco-feminism, pseudo-feminism, eco-spirituality. But this is nothing, and they never existed in our country, in our civilization. So whenever you are choosing the topic, using the terms, you have to be very careful and mindful. Thank you.
रैप कर दो भाई. ओके सो सबसे पहले तो पुनः नमस्ते सभी को. मुझे उम्मीद है कि काफ़ी सारे लोगों का जो है बहुत दूर दूर से आए थे, तो काफ़ी सारे लोग समझा सकते हैं कि द्वारका से, गाजियाबाद से, नोएडा से काफ़ी सारे लोग आए हैं. तो थैंक यू नोट का टाइम बाद में इसमें काम नहीं दूँगा, बट पहले मैं रिजल्ट अनाउंस कर देता हूँ. तो जैसा कि आपके दोनों जजेस से जो रिजल्ट आए वही दोनों जजेस थे, मेरे तो सिर्फ क्वेश्चन थे. तो सारे पेपर्स बहुत अच्छे थे, है ना. कुछ पेपर्स में कुछ सजेशंस जैसा टीचर द्वारा दिया गया, मुझे उम्मीद है कि उन सारे सजेशंस पर आप काम करें, उस पेपर्स में सही करें उसको, और आगे के फर्दर प्रेजेंटेशन काम करेंगे. ठीक है ना. आगे कोई भी कॉन्फ्रेंस होता है वो प्रेजेंटेबल रहेगा, बट एडिशंस के साथ, जो आपको सजेशन दिए गए हैं उसके साथ. ठीक है. तो बहुत सारा, पर मुझे एक सजेशन देना है क्योंकि थीम जब डिसाइड किया गया था तो इसका एक मूलभूत जो कहूँ तो तर्क रखा गया था, वो तर्क ये था कि कैसे रीडिंग इमेजेस, सीइंग टेक्स्ट, द सिटी एंड फॉरेस्ट एंड एंशिएंट इंडियन स्क्रिप्चर्स एंड आर्ट। तो रीडिंग इमेजेस और सीइंग टेक्स्ट का मतलब था कि आप जो है एक कनेक्शन बनाओगे टेक्स्ट के बेसिस पर और आर्ट के बेसिस पर। वो कनेक्शन नहीं दिखा किसी पेपर में, ठीक है, किसी भी पेपर में नहीं दिखा है। जैसे कि आपने जो आर्ट रखा है, जो आर्ट फॉर्म्स है, और आर्ट फॉर्म्स का डिस्क्रिप्शन उस समय के कंटेम्पररी सोर्सेज, किसी सोर्सेज में मिलता है कि नहीं मिलता है, मिलता है, या फिर जो हम इमेजेस को रीड कर कैसे कर सकते हैं, ठीक है, वो जनरली नहीं दिखा है। पर हाँ, पेपर अच्छे थे, उन पे काम किया जा सकता है। तो ज्यादा देर न करते हुए मैं जवाहरलाल नेहरू विश्वविद्यालय से हमारे समक्ष प्रस्तुत हैं डॉक्टर रेणु। तो मैं डॉक्टर रेणु से आग्रह करूंगा कि वो मंच पर आए और हमारे जो जितने भी विनर्स हैं उनको फेलिसिटेट करने के लिए वो मंच पर प्लीज पधारें।
Sir, please.
Yeah.
हर एक पुराना में हमको स्कल्पचर को कैसा बनाना है वो सब चीजें दिखाए। तो एक पेपर उसमें से भी हो जाता स्कल्पचर से, और भी पेपर आते थे, मैं भी बोल रहे थे कि एक तो पेपर हिंदी में भी आ जाता और भी अच्छा है। एंड माय सजेशन इज प्राइवेट के लिए एआई को मत पूछिएगा, आप खुद सोच के लिखिए, तब इंडियन टाइपिंग होगा।
मैं आप दोनों से भी आग्रह करूंगा कि आप प्लीज आ जाएं। तो हमारे आज के इस वार्षिक उत्सव नवचेतना के पेपर प्रेजेंटेशन कंपटीशन में जिसने तृतीय स्थान प्राप्त किया है, उनका नाम है दिशा सिंह। जोरदार तालियों से इंग्लिश लिटरेचर का स्टूडेंट होने के बाद उन्होंने बहुत ही अच्छे तरीके से लिटरेचर और हिस्ट्री दोनों का कॉम्बिनेशन प्रकट किया अपने पेपर में। So it's a wonderful paper. Yeah. So the second position for the paper presentation competition under the aegis of Navchetana' goes to Harsh Tomar. बहुत ही अच्छे सोर्सेस के साथ और बहुत ही लेंथी पेपर, बहुत ज्यादा वेटेज था पेपर पर बहुत अच्छा पेपर था। जो सजेशंस दिए गए हैं उस पर आज काम करें। कांग्रेचुलेशन। Okay, so finally it's time to announce the winner of third edition of Navchetana', that is the annual academic event। तीसरे वर्ष में हम कंप्लीट कर रहे हैं और इस तीसरे संस्करण की जो विजेता हैं उनका पेपर बहुत ही अच्छा, बहुत ही डिस्क्रिप्टिव, बहुत ही, जो मैं कहता हूँ कि हिस्ट्री का पेपर ना हमेशा जितना कंसाइज हो उतना अच्छा है। मतलब किसी टॉपिक स्पेसिफिक पे काम किया जाए, तो जातकों पर उन्होंने काम किया। सो द विनर इज स्नेहा पात्रा। और इमेजेस किसी ने यूज नहीं किया है। जो आर्ट और जो मैं बताया ना कि आर्ट और रीडिंग ये देखने को मिला है।
All the winners please come to the stage. Disha Singh. Again, many congratulations to all the winners. आज के इस आनंददायक और ज्ञानवर्धक कार्यक्रम में हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए आप सभी का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। अब मैं दाक्षी के संस्थापक तथा सूर्य समाज चेतना के स्रोत अक्षय कुमार भदौरिया जी को आमंत्रित करता हूँ कि वे धन्यवाद ज्ञापन करें।
ठीक है, तो आप लोगों की सबसे पहले तो सभी को बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं कि आप लोग यहाँ पर उपस्थित हैं। तो नवचेतना 24 के सफल समापन पर नवदाक्षी की ओर से आप सभी का हृदय से धन्यवाद व्यक्त करते हैं। हमें बताते हुए अत्यंत हर्ष हो रहा है कि नवचेतना 25 क्यों, क्योंकि हम एक नया वर्ष अपना जो मना रहे हैं इसलिए हम वहाँ पर 82 लिखते। कई लोगों ने मुझे पूछा कि ये 82 क्या है, वहीं से समझ आना चाहिए कि हम लोग जो है अपनी परंपराओं को कहाँ तक लेके संजोकर चल रहे हैं। ठीक है, एक यादगार और ज्ञानवर्धक अनुभव साबित हुआ। इस कार्यक्रम की सफलता के पीछे आपकी उपस्थिति, सहयोग और समर्थन का बहुत बड़ा योगदान है। हम विशेष रूप से हमारे आदरणीय अतिथियों को उनकी उपस्थिति और मार्गदर्शन के लिए धन्यवाद ज्ञापित करते हैं और दौलत राम कॉलेज को हमें अपना कैंपस प्रदान करने के लिए उनका धन्यवाद करते हैं कि प्रोफेसर सविता रॉय जी ने हमें ये कार्यक्रम कराने के लिए स्थान देने का सहयोग किया। हम इंडियन नॉलेज सिस्टम IKS के कन्वीनर डॉक्टर नरेंद्र जी का भी उनके सहयोग के लिए आभार व्यक्त करते हैं। हम हमारे निष्पक्ष और अनुभवी निर्णायकों को उनकी विशेषज्ञता और समय के लिए हम उनके प्रति अपनी कृतज्ञता प्रकट करते हैं। इसके अतिरिक्त सभी प्रतिभागियों को उनकी उत्साह और प्रतिभा के लिए भी साधुवाद। दाक्षी का कोई भी कार्यक्रम बिना राम की कृपा के सफल हो ही नहीं सकता। इसलिए मैं राम जी समेत सभी देवी देवताओं व गुरुओं को नमन करता हूँ। अंत में मैं धन्यवाद करता हूँ उस पूरे दाक्षी परिवार का, जिसके महीने भर की मेहनत एवं अथक प्रयासों के कारण हमें कार्यक्रम सफल करा पाए। दाक्षी के सदस्यों को दिन रात मेहनत का ही परिणाम है कि हम आज ये कार्यक्रम कर पा रहे हैं, इसलिए उनका साथ होता है धन्यवाद। बहुत सारे नाम हैं, कुछ नाम मैं लूंगा जिन्होंने बहुत ज्यादा मेहनत करी है। सबसे पहले तो हमारे दाक्षी के चीफ एग्जीक्यूटिव अमित कुमार जी,